And we're going to move on and look at a big issue, which is ceasing an EHCP. Now, if you remember, we talked about one of the goals for developing better value and safety valve are that they want to cease more EHCPs. So a local authority can cease to maintain an EHCP. That's the phrase that's used. It's called cease to maintain, for the following reasons. The child or young person no longer requires SEND provision. The support the child or young person requires could be provided without an EHCP, or that a young person has achieved all their outcomes in the EHCP and no longer needs to continue with education. So they are the only reasons that a local authority can even look at ceasing an EHCP. There may be children who have a condition which improves and they really don't need SEND provision, but that seems unlikely with children with vision impairment unless something really amazing happens. The support that they need suddenly being provided without an EHCP is possible, but not terribly likely. And this thing about achieving all their outcomes in the EHCP, I should just add to that if you have a child who's over 18, they must have regard to the educational and the training outcomes in terms of sort of training for adult life that are in the plan that have been achieved, not just their education. So there are slightly different rules for that age group. So these are the arguments that are often given to by local authorities to cease an EHCP. They say the child's needs have changed to the extent that a school or college can meet their needs through their general school SEND support without requiring EHCP. Well, I guess a school, if they improved hugely, could do that, but it still doesn't mean the child doesn't need the EHCP. No special educational provision is required at all. The provision a young person is receiving is classed as social or healthcare rather than special educational provision. And this actually goes along with the second bit, which is the young person has made minimal progress, and there's no expectation that they're going to gain any further qualifications. However, this is particularly important if you have a child with complex additional needs. And I know many people do have children with both sight loss and lots of additional complex needs. And I hear over and over again that they get to 18 and they say, well, they're not really learning anything new. They're not going to get any other new qualifications. And they always put the kind of the onus on the parent to say, actually, you've got to prove that they're still learning, that they're still going to gain some kind of qualification to warrant the EHCP. And if they're not, then they won't have the EHCP. On the whole, the court will fall in favour that even if there's minimal progress to be made, if there is some progress that can be made, even if it doesn't lead to future qualifications, it is worth keeping EHCP. And that's a really important thing to know. If you have an older child with complex needs, they don't have to be gaining qualifications and sitting exams to keep their EHCP. And even if their achievement is in some way to do with their communication interaction, to do with their independence, to do with they may have a chance to better be able to express themselves through whatever means is for them. It may not be through words, it may not be through writing. But if there's any chance that they could still make even small improvements that will be valuable to them later in their life, you can fight to keep that child's EHCP. So do remember that if you're in that position, it's so important. There's also a rather complicated thing, which is that you may, especially if your child is older, you may want to combine an appeal against cease to maintain. So you may find that your local authority said there's nothing in its EHCP that can still be delivered, so we're going to cease it. You may want to then say, well, actually, in that case, the EHCP needs amending. And if that's the case, you can ask for both of these things to be done as part of one tribunal, and they should always look at the amendments before they decide whether or not it can be ceased. So if you've got Plan A and you want Plan A to actually be amended to Plan B, which has possibly more outcomes and more things that you would like your child to achieve, that has to be done first, and then the court will decide whether or not it can continue. This is one of the very not known about, but really, really important bits of law that you need to know. Amendments first, looking at whether or not it's going to cease, because if you can get that plan amended to the point where there are still things that your child can improve and achieve, then you're far more likely to be able to keep it. So it's always got to be in that order. Really important.